The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Joanne Mercier. Hey, Joanne.
Hey, Dom.
And Thomas Sanjurjo. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, Dom.
I'm looking at today's rundown for the episode, and I'm kind of feel like this is like a bit of a theme. There's a sort of like old man get off my lawn vibe to this one. It wasn't intentional, but maybe it's just something in the air. So
I think it's because we all grew up going to the home of tomorrow, right?
Yes.
And that really flavors the way that we're thinking about what has come out making the home of tomorrow.
Yes, let's talk about that. So what we're going to talk about this time is how the promise of the smart home has failed to deliver. It's failed. It's like, I mean, it may succeed in the future, but as it stands now, the smart home is,
Yeah.
It's sort of meh. It works sometimes, it doesn't sometimes. And, you know, you make a good point, Thomas, about the smart home of tomorrow. Like, I remember as a kid seeing these, you know, the Disney Carousel of Progress, right? If anybody who went to Disney as a kid, or just like the short videos, you know, that they would play on, Saturday morning cartoons. Or my dad worked for a company called Raytheon. People know about the defense contractor, but they also own some home consumer product divisions like Amana and others. Anyway, I remember as a kid, my dad bringing home this glossy magazine like thing, which showed the home of tomorrow and how cool it was going to be. You know, your fridge will order the food for you when it notices you're low on stuff. And like, it was just like all this really cool stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's gonna be so awesome. Or, you know, like the Jetsons, or, you know, like all that stuff. And that's, I think when those of us who are the tech pioneers waded into the smart home frontier, we kind of did so on the promise that it was going to be that,
right? And
it hasn't been yet,
or even the promise that it was going to get there, right? Like, we were going to be early adopters. It was going to be rocky, but it was eventually going to move in a direction where it was going to look like that. But we're really like 15 plus years into the smart home revolution, and while there's a lot of cool stuff, there's a lot of problems still. So I wanted to kind of talk about how we feel about it right now. Kind of, we're going to have a little therapy session.
Very much so.
Yeah, we're going to kind of talk about what ails us and go, hi, I'm Dom and I'm a smart home addict. But so we should probably start at the top. You know, what do you have for smart home stuff now? What is your smart home look like now? Thomas, why don't you start with that one?
All right. Yeah. So we moved into new home, brand new build. And one of the really key features that I was super excited about was the fact that they have smart home kind of built into the bones of the home. So I was anticipating that I was going to be able to do better than my hack and slash, you know, on a 50-year-old home. And it was easy to set up the parts that are connected. So like the alarm system, any of the alarm stuff that you want to add to the alarm system, the garage door works on that. Some of the lights in the house work on that. All of the lights are actually smart lights, which is pretty cool. So I can, well, not all of them, but they all can be. They're all interchangeable. So I can just pull out the switch and replace it with a smart switch. But, and this is the big but, it's its own environment. And so when I brought in my smart refrigerator and my smart TV, which are a different environment, so that's the Samsung native on those two, they don't integrate with that system. And when I wanted to add something else, which is like, I don't know, it's kind of ridiculous because this home came with a sprinkler system that has a smart feature on it, but it does not integrate with my smart home. It's a different environment, and I can't jury rig it in any way to get it onto my smart home. So it's frustrating because I have like 3 or 4 different smart home environments that I'm working with. And like, you know, the Samsung one is one of them. And then the other one is my alarm company, or my security company that kind of runs the other piece of it. And it has some things that work with it and some things that don't.
Right. And like you say, like sometimes you can make them work together using like Homebridge or Home Assistant, which are these third-party open source things where people write plugins. But like a lot of open source, it can be kind of janky, and there's like 7 different plugins for the same thing, and which one's the right one to get, and so you got to go wade through some Discord or forums or Reddit threads, and then even then you probably won't work. You know, it's like, and it's so frustrating, and when we talk about the different environments, it's like, so there's like the Samsung environment, and then there's the Apple HomeKit environment, and the Amazon Alexa environment, and the Google Home environment, and then the Philips Hue environment, and Miro and Aqara, and some of them will have hooks into the big 3. And when I say big 3, I mean HomeKit, Alexa, and Google Home. But they don't all have those hooks, and sometimes there are some features that don't hook in.
Right.
You have to go to the individual app. And I was likening it to, imagine if with your electrical system in your home, every time you bought a new appliance, if it was a different brand than the other appliances, you had to put in a different sub panel in your electrical circuit breakers. No one would do that. It's crazy. It's ridiculous.
And that's an equivalent analogy, in my opinion. Like it's the difference is it's the technology instead of the electrical system. There's no physical component there are physical components, but there's no physical component there, but you are having to integrate an entirely separate system and figure out how to make them work together.
Not only is it just software, it's really companies, agreements, company decisions, APIs, and never mind when companies decide to change their APIs or turn off their APIs and leave you stranded with your hardware that does nothing now. So I get it. Joanne, what about you? What is your experience been like with smart home stuff?
Well, one who has viewed the Jetsons in first run and Star Trek with their replicators and
the doors.
such. Yes. I've always wanted to see, I've always said, you'd love to live to see this. Well, it's nice living to see it, but it's all over the place. I mean, seriously, I have Apple HomePods and Apple TV, Wemo smart plugs, Wise cams, Ring video doorbell, Echo Show. And I have way too many apps for these things. And yes, some of them will run in home, but not all of them. So it's a pain to try to get them all together. And, I start integrating these into a household with a husband who's like, are you sure we want to do this?
Right.
Do we have to do this? I'm like, well, let's start small. Let's have Shlomo turn our bedroom light on. We can manage that. Sometimes Shlomo gets a little antsy and doesn't want to do it. And then you got to try to troubleshoot that. Or I see one of my HomePods spinning and I have no idea why.
Yeah.
And so if it doesn't work, I'm the one who has to listen to. So why are we doing this? Why are you always trying to fool around with these things?
Yeah. As I said before, the unspoken comment is, why did you bring this into my home? Make me deal with this. Why couldn't I just flip a switch like I always have? Right.
Right. But from my perspective, what I'm looking at is technology that will allow us to stay in our home as long as we can. So getting used to having things turn on themselves or saving money. It's one of the reasons why I have the Wemo smart plugs is not just to alter, get things to turn on and off and do things like that, but to save money.
Right.
Yeah.
Having those plugs shuts off the electricity to the device until I decide I want it turned on.
You don't know how often I'm yelling across the house to the A-lady to turn off the bathroom lights.
Right.
I'm that dad. Turn off that light. No one's in that room. And so I'm constantly turning off the lights. I agree. That's actually a really good point you make about especially for older folks is smart home technology could make, when it works, could make your home possible to stay in your home and be independent longer because you're able to do things without having to physically manipulate or, get up and go at and that sort of thing. And to feel safe if you have security cameras and that sort of alarms and that sort of thing. So that's a really good point. I have an example of when that cost me a lot of money this winter. So we went to we switched over to heat pump a year and a half ago for our home heating and cooling. And it came with, they installed a Google thermostat, a Nest thermostat. And fine, I've had a Nest thermostat for over a decade anyway, so I was very comfortable with that. And we noticed over the December, January, the best part of the year for this is that it wasn't cooling. The pump was running and running and running, and our house was not getting above 62 degrees, which is not deathly cold, but it's pretty cold inside when it's 62. Finally, we had guys coming out, technicians. It turns out it had nothing to do with the heat pump. It had nothing to do with the refrigerant. It was the thermostat. The Google thermostat had a bug in it, a glitch, a problem. I mean, we didn't know what exactly it was, but swapping it out with a different one fixed it. And it was like, are you kidding me? And because the heat pump had been running constantly, that meant my electric bill was hundreds and hundreds of dollars because of this. It was not an inexpensive error on Google, the Google thermostat's part. Of course, no one's going to pay that for me. Google's not going to take responsibility. Right. Neither is the service company who installed it. I mean, that's me. It's, I get to so it's that sort of thing that just kind of grinds your gears a little bit. And every time one of these things goes wrong. Another example is I got the Aqara front door lock. It was the pick of the week recently. And I got it because it had Apple Home Key, that Home Key support where if I put my Apple Watch up to it, I don't even have to do anything special with the watch. I just walk up, put my Apple Watch up to it, unlocks, and I can go in the house. I'm like, yes, that is beautiful. When it works.
Right. That's the caveat, when it works.
And the many times it doesn't. I swear, I just have to breathe in the vicinity of the thing and it will lock. The door will lock. Usually when I've got the door open and I'm as I'm going out the door, closing it behind me, and it locks before it closes. And so it bangs on the door jamb. Yeah. But I can't get the darn thing to unlock for nothing, which is probably it's probably better than it doesn't.
That's a better problem, right?
Yeah, right. Okay, I don't want it unlocking too easy when it's closed. But it's and I'm like, oh, what's the thing? And this time I got the one that there's a panel, you slide it down, and there's a key, like a physical key. And I know my wife Melanie looks at me every time I have to do that, and she's like, you can get a door lock with a key for about a third of the price of what you paid for this. But when it works, every night at a particular time, all the doors lock. I know the house is locked up at a particular time. Yeah, I'm not telling anyone what time it is because it'll come before that if they listen to the podcast. So at some time in the night, usually after you come. I mean, before you come. So don't try it. Not after you come.
There are things my husband won't let me touch, like the heating system. Yep. That's one of them. And we did get one of those touch locks for the inside garage door, but he won't let me put anything else on it. Yeah. So there are things that he just won't let me near because he's afraid of that. It's not going to work, and I'm not going to know how to get in the house.
I know there are IT guys who say I would never put a smart home lock on the door of my house because I work in IT. I know how they break. And I know how that someone could get past it. Someone could hack it. So I would never do that. I'm not quite so paranoid, but maybe I should be. Maybe I'm whistling past the graveyard. But it's these sorts of things that kind of erode your confidence in how the system works. And it becomes very frustrating after a while. And you begin to wonder, well, why am I doing this? But I know that if I try to go back and get rid of all the smart home stuff, it would become very frustrating very quickly because I will acknowledge that when it works, it's usually invisible and I don't think about it. I think about it when it breaks. And so I acknowledge that the friction of it breaking is what comes to mind, not all the many, many times when it works the way it's supposed to. So there is that.
Yeah. Do you think the manufacturers really haven't thought all of this through yet?
I don't think it's that even. I think it's that nobody has come to a consensus about it.
Okay.
And it's the internet works because before the internet became the internet, everybody got together and they had a consensus about what was going to be written for a website. And so all websites follow a standard. And where you have that kind of situation, innovation can occur because now everybody can build against it. The problem is that all of these groups want their walled gardens and they want you to only buy their technology. But then they stop selling their technology. They obsolete their technology on purpose. They do all of this stupid stuff that makes it so frustrating.
Everything, right?
Exactly.
Right.
They're not making the thing that I want. I want the thing that guy's making. Right.
Yeah.
In some way, it's analogous when you mention like how websites work. It's kind of analogous to web browsers for a long time. It's gotten much better, I have to say. But there's still some websites that you really can't use with certain web browsers. They only work with, like right this very minute, I'm using a web browser that is not my regular web browser to use StreamYard, which is the service we use to record our podcast, because it doesn't work with Safari.
Right. Correct.
And it's like a different manufacturer, has a different plan and different ways of doing things that they think is better. And it's like, why can't we work together, folks? Hold hands and sing Kumbaya and make it work together.
But Matter is supposed to level the playing field, is it not?
So Matter is right. So there's Matter and Thread, and I don't want to get into the weeds of the differences, but the basic understanding of Matter is that it's supposed to be a standard that the big three agree on, and that all the manufacturers will agree on, that makes it easy for every device to work within each of the three big ecosystems, HomeKit, Alexa, Google Home, so that when you buy a Matter-enabled device, it will just show up in your Google Home or in your HomeKit. But that's the dream. The way it's supposed to work is you plug it in, you turn it on, you plug it in, and it shows up and it's there and ready to go. We're not quite there yet. There's still configuration that has to happen. There's still devices that have features that are only available in the proprietary app that aren't available in the HomeKit, Alexa, Google Home apps. So there's still some of that, but it's the right direction. I have to say that's at least heading in the right direction. My big problem is that everybody has to agree to it, and they have to do more than just pay lip service to it, right? So they have to do more than just write an API that is accessible, quote unquote, because if that's all they're doing, then you end up, and I'll give you the example for our home. We have smart fans. The smart fans integrate with the Alexa system, kind of. Right. So there's something like I can turn them on and off, but there's so much that they're capable of. And to get to the controls for them, I have to jump through 3 different hoops to make it work in an Alexa. None of the voice commands are operable. I can on and off and like setting the speed of the fan are operable. But other than that, just forget about it. And it's one of those things where it's frustrating because like this should work. There should be a standardized library of how to make these things integrate, and it shouldn't be on the fan producer entirely to make that happen, right? Like they shouldn't have to write this whole complex code for themselves for their own app, and then also write the complex code that fits into the bigger environment. The bigger environment needs to make it easier to just put hooks into whatever they're doing that then allow the UI or whatever to port over. And that's before I even get to saying that, well, my Alexa stuff is not connected to my main alarm app, so I can't get to it from there. So it's just, it's so frustrating because there's like all of these little spaces. I tell you, I don't even look in Alexa anymore. Like if I set up a device, if I say, Alexa, turn on this light, and it does, I'm happy. If I open up the Alexa app and look in the devices section, it's a mess. Some things are there, some things aren't. Sometimes some things are in there 3 or 4 times. I don't want to deal with it. if it works with me telling it the stupid pipe to in the kitchen, it's the old tall one. If I tell it to turn the thing on or off and it works, okay. But that leads me to another complaint, which is, and we've talked about this before. These smart assistants are not so smart because you have to remember exactly how to phrase it. Right. Yes. I could not for the life of me remember how to phrase it when I want the darn thing to turn on the fan that's on my bedside table. Right. Because it's the master bedroom, Dom's fan on the master bedroom table. No, it's like, and so like I spend a walk over, turn the darn thing on, like I walk across the house, turn it on, or open up the app and hit the button, which is usually what I do anyway. It's like those things haven't gotten any smarter either. Like in an age of ChatGPT, I don't understand why smart assistants can't figure it out.
That really bothers me too, and especially with the new assistants that they have coming out. So the Gemini has popped its way onto my phone, and I hate it. Like honestly, it's worse than Google Assistant, which is supposed to be the dumb version, right? Yeah. So I tried so hard to make Gemini do anything, like even with regular voice. So I was trying the regular voice commands, which is what it says. Don't talk to it like you did Google Assistant. So I tried that. I tried the Google Assistant way of doing things. I tried everything. It got it got really, really creative in the way that it was answering my questions.
Creative failing.
Right, yeah. Doing the completely wrong thing. Even just basic stuff like calling my wife because our name is weird. Oh. Right. So Sanjurjo does not come across. None of the assistants can say it at all. So, I'll say it and then it will interpret something completely differently or grab a completely wrong and different name. And then hers is funny, too, because her first name is Alicia and it's Alicia. But it'll occasionally try and spell the Alishia or it's some other variation of it. And it's just it's infuriating because it's like you're supposed to be the smart one and I can't get you to do anything right.
And her name is in your address book. I'm assuming
it's like it's right there. It's
so go look over there. I can do that.
It's not even like it has to go very far down the list. She's in the A's.
Right. She's right at the top. Like if I have favorites. My wife's name is at the top of the favorites list.
Exactly.
It's like, well, why can't you find that? It's so frustrating.
Yeah. The phraseology for them. Each one, you have to phrase things just a little different. And my husband goes crazy because he thinks he's talking to a regular person. So this thing should understand him. I'm like, no, Kev, you have to ask the question this way to get the answer you're looking for. Well, why should I have to do that? I don't know why, but that's what he's supposed to do it.
One of my favorite SNL skits ever is the one where it's got Alexa Silver for old people. Allegra, how wishes. I don't know about that.
So good.
I don't know about that.
Well, it's my wife made the analogy that it's like you have to turn your mouth into a keyboard. And it's just such a weird experience. And I agree. I can't disagree with that because you really do. You have to alter the way that you are having a conversation with them. And the smart systems are supposed to, the LLMs are supposed to fix that, but they really don't. They don't.
Not yet.
Yeah. No. So Perplexity has a new AI voice assistant app that you can download onto like an iPhone, which I've done. And it actually can do things that Siri can't, which I think is hysterical.
Oh, wow.
Because it's the APIs are there. They just never connected the APIs to Siri. Apple, this is your thing. Okay. The problem with Perplexity, though, is it's slow. I am going to talk like this back to you and take very long time fulfilling your, just for the love of Pete, please do it. Just do it. Like, don't tell me you're doing it. Or so it's like, well,
Well, the other side of that, too, is that you can't have these on your device as a dedicated item.
Right,
so with Google Assistant, it's on my device. It's not phoning home every single time I'm asking a question.
Right.
With Gemini, every single time I ask a question, that's going back to Google and getting uploaded.
Same thing with Perplexity. Yeah, right. It's going back to the home. And and if I'm in any place with great connectivity, which as a scout leader I often am, it doesn't work anymore. That's the other part of Perplexity. The one other kind of friction point for me is I got in early on Philips Hue lights. If I were to start from scratch this time, I probably would go with the Lutron Cassetta setup, which is So the Philips Hue lights the smarts is in the light bulb. With Caseta, the smarts is in the wall switch. And the nice thing about that is someone can come along who doesn't want to deal with the smart stuff and just flip a switch and it works. And it's only just regular light bulbs. It's not smart light bulbs. And they don't burn out, or I mean, the smart stuff doesn't burn out. Every time a Philips Hue bulb burns out, I have to go get another computer part, right? Essentially. And that's the thing that bugs me, is because when they go in weird ways. Like in our bathroom, I have like 3 lights above the vanity, and one of them is starting to do this thing where in the middle of the night it just kind of glows a little. And then the one on my wife's bedside table, she's a light sleeper. She like needs the room absolutely dark. I have black tape over every glowing bulb, blue thing on everything. Her light bulb has started to glow faintly in the middle of the night. And so she's like, she has to roll over and like physically turn off the lamp. And it's like, so now I have to replace it. And when you replace it, it's not easy. You have to go into the Philips app. You take out the bulb, you put a new one in, you have it search for it, you add it. Now you have to rename it the same name, and I have to put it into the device in room. And now I have to go to the home app and fix all of the automations controlling that are broken.
Right.
Instead of saying, hey, Philips Hue, this bulb is dead. I'm putting a new one there. That bulb is now the old bulb. Right. For the purposes of everything. Like, why have they not, like, this is a common experience for people, right?
Right.
It's like,
it's got to be.
It should be.
Do they not have these in their own homes? Do they not experience this? That's the thing is, I get it's the people who own these companies, the programmers, the engineers, they're using this stuff, right? Don't they experience this?
Maybe not at this point.
Maybe they aren't. Yeah. So it is. Yeah.
Yeah. The ones we have for the light switches are Deco light switches, and they're really neat because they're just plug and play. Like you grab the whole switch out, like the particular switch that you want, you just pull it out of the wall and you put a new one in. So if you wanted a smart one or a motion one, and they work, they work fantastic. They're really good. And I highly recommend them. But again, it's like, I recommend them, but I've got a Deco app and my alarm app that controls them, and then Alexa has them on. And I have to, if I'm going to go set something up, I got to go back to all of these different places and set it up to make it work.
Right, even with a brand new build from scratch construction, where you're not having to fill into 50-year-old technology like you're saying in a 50-year-old house. Even then, you still can't get where it's still not ideal. You still can't get a system that just works. So I wanted to kind of just close out by kind of what would be the system, like an ideal system? Like, what do we want to happen? And I was going to propose an idea. Like, basically, there should be an in-home plug-and-play hub. What I mean is a hub, like Philips Hue has a hub. The Apple Home system has you can have your Apple TV or a HomePod Mini could be a hub, but they're devices that control locally. Okay, so I want a home hub that is plug and play according to an open standard, right? There's a standard that it's published, it's open source, open everything, free as in beer, free as whatever. Just the whole thing. And then devices from whatever manufacturer, doesn't have to be from the same hub, manufacturer of the hub, can connect through that open standard and just work. I think that's what we want. We don't want it to have to go to servers. We don't want to have special apps. We just want it to work in one app, one hub, in one home. Yeah. That's really what we want. And nobody manages to get that because everybody's fighting to defend their turf. Am I far off?
No, you're not at all, because I think that is the basic problem. I believe that most of these devices can't work on a basic system that they all share. It's just the nuances that are making them into silos. It has to be, because, you can look at, I looked at video doorbells from 3 different places. Excuse me. And they all look like they work almost exactly alike. It's just you have to use one app for one app for another. And it's like, why? Because of why? Because we want to lock you into our system.
Like Ring or... Right. Yeah.
But you're not understanding the fact that we want to have everything in one place. And if we do, then we're going to buy the product that fits our needs better. Mm-hmm. It may not be yours for this, but it could be yours for something else.
Right.
But if you're going to lock me in, your camera may not work as well as your speaker. So I may bypass you totally. That's why I've gotten rid of all the A-ladies, mm-hmm. because I felt that I wanted to be in one system and Apple, and that's where I am. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I would have been happy to have everybody what I needed.
Well, and then the big problem too, and this is what really bothers me about it, is that you have two options there. One, specialize, lock in only the people that are going to lock into you, and just do it that way. Or generalize so much that you do nothing well.
No, okay.
And that's my big problem. Is the other side of that is like, okay, so I want to make crappy everything because I know that people want to hub up, and I'm going to make all of the really bad stuff, but I've got everything covered so they can get their whole smart home done in my environment. Both of those are terrible options.
Right.
And so what I would like is this system. And this is the thing, is like, it could work if you just got out of we have to build an app for this thing, and you got into the point where you realize apps are essentially just websites that are delivered in a very specific way online. So if you make your user interface a website that can be delivered in another app, then we could just have this one hub app that can deliver all of the website components of all of the different pieces. And there you go. Now you've got all of your stuff, and yeah, the UI will look different. I'll go to my smart fans, and they'll be slightly different than my home cameras. I don't care as long as it's all in the same app and I can move around inside of it.
Right.
And that's my big problem, is like flipping back out to another app to turn something on and hoping that agrees with the other app that I just left.
Or going back into one of these manufacturer apps and realizing it's logged you out, so now I got to log back in.
Yes, there's that problem.
Yes, and they all want to notify me of stuff.
Oh, like,
including sales.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When the A lady starts with, A lady, read my notifications, and here's my notification, and let me explain to you, A, shut up.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to hear any more.
Have you considered buying this other thing? No. Oh man. So, I mean, that said, I wouldn't want to give up the smart home that I have now. It is convenient. It does do a lot of things for me that I need it to do. Not just like it to do. I need it to do. When I travel, I don't have to remember. I don't know if you guys are older. Joanne, you probably remember. We're of the same vintage. Thomas, I don't know if you remember. Remember the little outlet things with the little dial clock on it?
Oh, yeah.
That you had to set.
I remember those.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the listeners, ask your parents. So, but I remember like having to get those every time we travel, and having to set it up so that the lights came on at a particular time and they went off, so people would think you were home. And like now, I just have the automations that I turn on, and it does it for me, and it does it in a fuzzy way, so it's not exactly at 9:22 every night that the lights come on, that sort of thing. It's fuzzy and it's better. And, I like that sort of stuff. I can get set up for recording a podcast instantly with one press of a button on my Stream Deck. Lights turn on, turn off, things happen, all because I do have these things, except when it doesn't work. And I have to, as I was telling you guys earlier, crawl under my desk in the middle of a podcast in order to turn on a light because the smart outlet needed to be reset.
Yeah.
But I want these things, and I just want them to work better, and that's all we're asking.
Right.
I'm the same way for what I stated earlier. As we get older, we want to stay here. So I want to find those things that are going to make us be able to do that. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, we were talking tonight, before we came on to do this, about landscape lighting. Because we have the old fashioned, when they go off, my husband has to go outside with a little key and sort of, try to fix the clock and all of that stuff to go back on. So every year we do these. Should we get new landscape lighting outside? And he's afraid because he sees what goes on in the inside sometimes. And he's like, oh, do I want to go do that outside? He said, but I really want to use an app because I don't want to keep going outside in the rain trying to fix the clock.
Right.
So we just want something that will work, that will make our lives easier and not make us want to run to an apartment or assisted living.
Right.
Or for younger people who have parents that they're trying to care for, something that makes it so that they're not pulling their hair out, especially if they're having to deal with their own smart home and their parents' smart home.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel really bad for your generation doing that. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, again, having the smart home stuff when you're the child of a parent who's older and trying to live independently, having that stuff to help take care of them and to monitor what's going on. And that sort of thing, cameras and that, and having the A lady to drop in on, or whatever that is. We just want it to be reliable. That's the thing is we want, if you want us to rely on your products, be reliable. And that's what we're asking. All right. So, therapy session is over. That's our hour. We'll see you same time next week, folks, for the next therapy session. See the receptionist on the way out. No, so I want to before we move on, thank the folks who do actually make this show possible. Our patrons who allow us to create the secrets of technology, including Tara H, Francis B, Carla K, Marilyn K, and Kip C. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of technology and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. All right. I feel like Jerry Stiller from the Seinfeld. I got more things to complain about, you kids. You got to sit here and listen to it. So let's complain about some more things. Nintendo. We've been talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 and how that's been coming out, and it was even Father Andrew's pick of the week last week. Well, Nintendo doesn't want you to be too happy. They just came out with a change to their their user agreement, so that anyone who has a Nintendo system like I do have a Switch, I've had to agree to this new user agreement, which for the Switch 2 says Nintendo is giving itself the right to make your Switch 2 permanently unusable if you break certain rules that they've decided to impose. What kind of rules? So they may render the Nintendo account, services, and or the applicable Nintendo device permanently usable in whole or in part if you what was it? I forget the phrasing of what it is. If you try to bypass system protections, modify software, or mess with it in any unapproved way. Thomas, what do you think of this?
I hate it. I love Nintendo, and I totally understand what they are doing here, because anyone who doesn't know, what they're getting at here is essentially a way to prevent piracy of games, because in order to pirate games, you have to be able to copy the BIOS of the system that you're using. So if you want to play an old Nintendo game on a system, you have to have a Nintendo operating system copied in digital form to be able to play. So what they're trying to avoid here is letting anyone inside the device to do that copying and have now a situation where they can now run Switch 2 games anywhere else. So I get it. I do not like this way of going about it at
Right.
all.
Yeah. Because it's overly broad. It's not super specific. It doesn't say to prevent piracy or if you do these very specific things. It basically, you've just spent $500 plus on this piece of hardware, and we can take away your ability to use it in any meaningful way that isn't a paperweight if we decide to, for any reason whatsoever. They do not specify the very specific piracy and that sort of stuff. They just leave it very open-ended. And from their point of view, this is their lawyers like, yeah, make it as broad as possible because it means we can do whatever we want. It doesn't constrain us in any way, but it's bad for the consumers.
It's terrible for consumers. And really, like, even let's just say, okay, this is a good regulation because it keeps people from doing the wrong thing. What happens if Nintendo does this by accident to you? Like you get flagged for some reason because someone was pinging off of your IP and did something that they weren't supposed to do. And now you get flagged for having done something wrong and they brick your device. And what recourse do you have at that point? Because
that never happens.
It never happens. No,
I've had it happen where my kids have been playing iPad games where the iPad game locks them out after they've been and they're in tears because this is a beloved game and they've spent so much time accumulating, I don't know, jewels or something, whatever's in the game. And I'm emailing customer support. Please, my children are not hackers. They do not know how to do whatever it is you claim that they're doing. They're 7. It's like, and meanwhile, you see that these other guys are on the leaderboard lists with, 55 billion points. Like there's no possible way anyone could do that legally, but they seem to be fine. And it's like, but you have no recourse. You can't get through to anyone. Like mistakes do happen all the time. And that's the thing that scares me. Like you could potentially, it's a gamble, spend $500. Maybe someday your Switch 2 becomes a expensive brick.
Yeah, I'm not a gamer, as you all know, but this is not exclusive to gaming.
No,
this is happening. I mean, Apple's even said we don't own our music.
Yeah,
and I'm sorry if I'm paying my hard-earned money for, and this is why I end up, speaking of the music part, buying my own music and not doing Apple Music and making sure that I have CDs sometimes so I can have the backup. Because I'm sorry, if I've paid for this, it should be mine. This
is why I back up all of my ebooks wherever I buy them from, and why I've decided to buy books only from Kobo now instead of Amazon, because Amazon are jerks about it, and they went and told me that I've paid all that money for all 800 some odd books, but they're not mine.
Right.
And if they decide to pull it back, they're not going to give me back any of my money, are they? No. So, it's the same sort of thing. It's
a God complex. Everyone thinks, I own this or I can control this. So, the rest of you need to kowtow to me. And it's like, no, I'm sorry. This is getting ridiculous.
Well, the trend is that the users have no rights. That's the thing. Is the users, the companies have all the rights. The users just have to be happy with whatever the companies are willing to give them. As long as we keep ponying up the money. Right. I'm generally against lots of government regulation, but there are times when, we need our governments to kind of stand up against powerful corporations.
Right. Well, and that's what government regulation should be, right? It's where we cannot collectively make something happen. We can go to the government and the government can step in and say, yeah, this is not right. Clearly.
Right. Exactly.
Maybe.
Exactly. Yes. So our next headline is from the Washington Post, and man, this is another dystopian story. Inside the life of a 24/7 streamer, quote unquote, what more do you want? And they tell the story primarily of this young woman in Texas who has been 24/7 streaming on Twitch for what, at the time of publication, 1,137 continuous days. Every moment of every day, except when she's in the bathroom, has been streamed. And it talks about why she does this and the effect it's been having on her. And the fact is it's a very negative effect. She's very lonely. People watching her every moment, every day, and she's lonely. She can't get a boyfriend. She hasn't gone on a date in 7 years, I think it said. She had no vacations, no sick days. If she stops streaming for any reason, her audience, her metrics go down. People stop watching. And like an addict, looking for the dopamine hit. And frankly, I think that's what's going on here. If any dip in the numbers is an emergency, I have to get those numbers back up again. These may be extreme cases, but I think it's a symptom of the extremely online age that we're in. What do you guys think of this?
It's the Truman Show.
Thinking exactly that.
In live, but only she knows she's on camera.
Right.
Where Truman did not. But I just don't. Why would anyone want to do this? is my question. And maybe I'm just old and I should just keep kids off my lawn, but I don't get it. I mean, I like to do podcasting, and I've had, I've been on podcasts, other podcasts, but I don't understand why somebody would want to be on 360. No, there are times where my life is my life. I have a life outside of being looked at by other people. And also I want to control what other people see. If you're live, anything can happen, and it usually does.
Right.
So, I mean, this has got to be I read this and I just said, honey, you need to get a life. Shut the camera off, and you need to get a life.
And I think that's the really interesting thing here, is that we've lost some sense of individuality in the modern age, and groupthink has become the standard, not and you can't jump from one group to another and exist independently of those two. You have to lock yourself in and be stuck. And this is kind of like
tribe.
And it's like the ultimate version of that, right? Where she's completely locked in, and the effects are so interestingly that she's lonely in a group of people, right? So she's always part of this group, but she's completely by herself. And there's, I'm an introvert, so, which is hilarious because I do a lot of this kind of stuff where I'm like in front of people or talking to people, but I really am. And the thing that recharges me the most is being able to get out by myself and away from everyone. And it might be a symptom of having 8 kids, but that's but I've always been a little bit this way too. So, but being by yourself and giving yourself that time of silence where there's no expectation, there's no immediate need to do something or to perform, and just being able to drop all of that and exist for a moment is so important. And religion is really good for that, because religion provides you that opportunity to really drop the facade. And I think that's one of the beauties of the fact that God knows you, right? That you don't have to pretend with God, because he already knows. So
no facade will hide you from him. Yes,
exactly. And that's the beauty of it, is that you can remove yourself from all of these other expectations and all of these other things and truly be alone and recharge that sense of self to then be able to go back. And yes, you will have to put back on the facade. You do. There are certain groups that you have to be, you go in your professional career, and you have to put on a face for that. Yeah, exactly. And, but being able to take those off is so important to the human psyche, and to be able to just really be yourself, bare, and not have anything hidden, and just be alone and open. It's necessary.
When you look at the photos in the article, you'll notice she's a beautiful young woman. That's probably part of the appeal. And I'm going to guess a lot of the 24/7, sort of streamers are probably similarly beautiful women, handsome young men, whatever the case. And this isn't OnlyFans. This is, tamer than that, shall we say, more clothed. But it's all of a piece, and there's an objectification. Why are people watching? They're watching not because they enjoy watching a young woman sitting, at a computer typing. They're watching for the thing. What's she going to do? It's the unexpected, the titillation, not necessarily at sexualized stuff, but just at the unexpected, or the thing that she wasn't supposed to do, or it's objectification. We're everyone who sits there staring at these. I'm not against streaming. My daughter has she loves Minecraft streaming, and there's a group of streamers that she follows, but they're not it's different. They're not it'd be as if I was a podcaster who was on podcasting 24/7, 365. That would be obnoxious. So we're not saying all streamers, but it's this extreme desire to be seen, but it does kind of bleed over into other types of social media, which is intensely aware of the statistics. That's the one thing that comes up is her stats. Intensely aware. People aren't watching me. My value is in how many people are watching me. No. My value is in how many likes, how many views, how many listens. And when those things go away, as they will do, for everyone, where's your value then? Like, who are you then? And I like the fact that they mentioned Jenny Cam, which I remember Jenny Cam from way back in the day. She was she was like the 2001 or something like that. Extremely primitive time for streaming things. And people were watching it 24/7 and she just disappeared. She's like, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm offline. I have no social media. I don't do interviews because it's just so it strips people of their humanity, I think. It
very much does.
Anybody who does podcasting, we want to see the numbers. We want to be validated. I get that. But this is something different. And we would think that COVID taught us something. Yes, when we were all in our homes for almost a year, we used the internet to reach out to people. And that was a good thing. And that was a good use. But now we really need to be back with people. Right. We know how to manage things now. Yes, people still get COVID. People still get really sick. But we are human beings. We need tactile. We need to be in a room with folks. We need to hug again, shake hands. This is how we connect and network.
Right.
This is the Truman Show. That's all.
Well,
it's the best way I can describe it.
You hear psychologists talking about Gen Z as an extremely lonely generation. They do not interact in person. They are alone all the time. Speaking of the introversion, Thomas, this article, a paragraph in the article, in Introvert, she saw Twitch's raucous, ceaseless attention as exposure therapy. It's forcing myself to do things I don't want to do because I want this stream to work. I want it to work so bad that I just don't care anymore. So over time, the pressure to entertain her audience intensified. She commentated a police chase from her balcony. She shopped for clothes in the mall. She donned an inflatable sumo suit and danced in a bathtub. She began to think of herself as a number, she said, her view count, her subscribers. In other words, she reduced herself to a number, to not a person anymore.
Yeah, she lost her identity, and that's she had no sense of who she was, and that's I feel like so many people right now are dealing with that because having been as involved in social media as I have been and as pro social media as I have been, I really am coming to the point where it feels like it's a wreck. And it's just it's a bad experiment and it's gone wrong, and that people do well, I know the companies first off thrive on engagement, and engagement on the internet is always negative. There is no situation in which engagement is positive. It's always negative. There's always the more negative thing you can say, the more engagement you're going to get. And that's, I guess that's a better way to put it, because, you can't have good interactions, but still that's bad. Like we should not encourage that just because it increases interaction.
Right.
But there's no remedy for that. There's no social stoppage of that. There's no backlash either for the most part, because it's all anonymous. And so for her, she feels like she's being validated, but as much as she is objectifying herself, she's also objectifying all her viewers, because all they are numbers. So even if she gets 1 million views, it's 1 million views, and it's not 1 million people watching her. It's 1 million views.
The more people there are, the more they become depersonified. Right. If it was 1-to-1, it's different. But when there's the million, 2 million, 3 million, at that point, it's just a crowd. Right. It's just a mass of numbers of IP addresses. They ask people, why do you enjoy it? And, it's like when I come home and knowing you're live is like a warm hug every day. There's a false intimacy that's created too. There's a false, this sort of a celebrity culture. We do this with TV stars where we think we know someone online. It's a, what do we call it? A parasocial relationship.
Right.
And that's what happens with a lot of these things. And people think that they have not only just a connection, that they have a right to you, a right to tell you things, a right to tell her that she's gaining weight. It was one thing in the article, like even though she's slim, you know, a normal size, or that she sleeps too much, or that she needs to take showers more often, or, you know, it's like, seriously, it's just weird. It's not healthy for anyone involved. And shame on Amazon, who owns Twitch, for letting this sort of thing go on. This is not healthy, and they should not encourage it.
Well, there's somebody in there was encouraging her from Twitch.
To keep going. Yeah.
Like, really? Would you like your daughter to be on there for 3 years and running?
Right. Probably.
Who knows?
Yeah. So from that dystopian article, let's go to the next one. Everyone is cheating their way through college. Everybody's so creative. So this is from the Intelligencer, and the premise is that college students, by and large, many of them, maybe most, maybe all, I don't know, are using LLMs basically to cheat their way through college. And there's nothing really that the colleges can do about it or are willing to do about it. And they start by highlighting this one guy who at Columbia, who basically admits that he used ChatGPT to cheat in every class. He just dumped, I think he's in a computer science major, into ChatGPT, and because his whole point was not to actually learn anything, but was to create an app and meet a co-founder for a business and get bought out and become rich. And not all the people that the students they talk to are like that, but a lot of them do not see a problem with this. There are legitimate uses of ways of using it. Like they kind of call out people using ChatGPT to get sources for papers. I'm not sure that's any different from using a computer at the library to look up sources, but using it to listen to your lecture and create a transcript and then summarize it into notes and then write your essay, and now we're getting into bad territories. And one other thing I think all of this highlighted for me was, is it even useful to go to college anymore? Like, what is the point of spending all that? I think what colleges should be afraid of is people saying, what's the point? Why spend 50 grand a year so that I can sit there and just feed all the stuff into ChatGPT and get my grade out of it and waste time when I could just go get a job?
What we're not teaching children is the process. We're teaching them to get the end result only, and that's what matters. We need to teach them the process to get how to get the end result. Well, that's what makes them critical thinkers. Or
even more, the way that we do primary and secondary education, high school and below, is we teach kids that the important point is tests and grades. What we don't teach them is a love of learning. Because if you love learning, then you're not going to cheat. You want to learn.
Right.
I had classes that I was taking because they were required classes, and I did what I had to do to pass them. And if I were taking the class now, would I get help from ChatGPT? I would like to think I wouldn't, but maybe I would. But there were classes I took that I loved, and I wish I could have taken them a second time, because they were just so cool. And I would never think of cheating at it because I was having such a great time taking the class. Well, why is it like that then? I mean, yes, you have to take classes in subjects that you don't love because of the foundation for other things. But I think it's true.
But I question that even, right?
Okay.
Because in a world where we have so much information readily available to us, why do I need a grounding in these other things, right? And if I do need a grounding in these other things, then what I don't need is to go into that class and have it be pedantic and just force me to learn something because I need to learn it, right? I need to go into that thing and I need you to inspire me with what the purpose of having this knowledge is. And it's bizarre because I took a chemistry class in college that was like, it was chemistry 101. because it had to be done. I was a liberal arts student, but I had to have some sciences. I took this chemistry class. It was awesome. The professor came in on the first day, and all he talked about the entire semester was Buckminster Fullerenes. He had met Buckminster Fuller at one point, and he had this big conversation with the group, the conversation. And it was so cool because I learned about long carbon chains. I learned so much chemistry and why chemistry is important in that class. And I did not once crack the book and have this test about well, this is what these particular things mean. And I learned this stuff. I learned this stuff because it was interesting, right? And if you want to say that there is a low-level class that you have to take, then that's the class that it needs to be. It needs to be, here's why you should love this thing, or here's an introduction to this thing that gives you the basis to jump off of and do something with it. Because if I can seriously sit through a class and answer the questions using ChatGPT, there's something wrong with the class, not with the cheating.
Right. My wife taught English comp at a state college 20 years ago, before all this stuff was available. But even then, it was the requirement was she had to teach them how to write essays and how to do the 5-paragraph thing, and then the introduction, the body, and it was so boring. And they were all going why am I learning this? Well, you need to be able to write, and I get that you do need to be able to write. But let her teach them in a way that makes it interesting to them, that they want to write, that they're passionate about it. Poetry, you have to find the meaning of the poem. What is the meaning of this poem? Poems what you feel. You should feel something for the poem, not what is the author of the poem's meaning. As if it's like a puzzle you have to decode. And it's in that case, I just shove that into ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT, what's this poem mean? I don't need to that nonsense. But if you want me to experience it and have an experience of art and beauty and truth, that's different. And so I agree. I think we should be teaching, if we're going to teach people. The problem is the way we're teaching, the way and the way we're assessing. Through tests and essays and all this other stuff.
Right.
Maybe, but I do think still, these kids are graduating from college. They're not learning anything, frankly. They're getting out without having had to do any work for some of them. Hopefully the engineers are learning things and the doctors, but the rest of them, the marketing majors and the business majors, they're going to end up at companies not having basic knowledge. This is not new, though, because I have a high school classmate of mine, so we're going back a ways, who went through 4 years of college, graduated, not with honors, but, high up in his class, got a job at a big financial firm, and then was calling me to help him write memos and things for his boss because he didn't know how to write. And he got through 4 years of college that way.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily new and not a ChatGPT specific thing, but
nah, I think we need to rethink college, really, in all honesty, and trade schools always get a bad rap.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
A trade school, we're moving into a point where what we needed to be doing is training people to do a job, not just plumbing them with education or testing them on whether they learned something.
I think we'll always need people who are in the liberal arts and the humanities, philosophers and poets and theologians. We need that. We need many fewer of those. And there are many jobs like business and marketing and stuff like that where you don't need to go to college to be able to do half the stuff those people do when they get out of college and go to their first job. You don't need to know how to do that, to do sales or operations and all that other stuff.
I'll be honest, though, a philosophical trade school sounds amazing, where you just go and you practice philosophy, right?
There's a new college that's starting in Steubenville, Ohio, not part of the Franciscan University, St. Joseph's, it's something to do with St. Joseph, of course, but it's a trade school with humanities. You get a degree in humanities while also learning one of the trades, carpentry, plumbing, electrical, and stuff like that at the same time.
That's not a bad idea. As a creative here, you have to exercise both sides of your brain.
Right.
And when we used to have music in schools and when we used to have art in school, while some people thought it was just wasting time, it really was helping people to get in touch with the other side, because music has always been part of the mathematical sphere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like, folks, you're not, if we've taken all that out in favor of STEM learning, then you're not balanced.
It should
need to have a balance.
STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art. And math.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Exactly.
And STEAM with the extra M from music.
Right.
STEAM. I have 2 kids who will never go to college. It's just clear to me that, that it's not for them. They have learning disabilities, and it's just the school stuff is. One will make a great welder. She loves the idea of welding and doing that, and I want to get her an apprenticeship as a welder. Yet she's an artist, and she loves to read, and she's and the other one he's loves to work with his hands, but he loves books and music. That you can have a life of the mind without going to college.
Yes.
That's not necessary. And they will be 22 years old with 0 debt and good paying jobs.
Exactly. Yeah. Makes a lot of difference.
Yeah. I'm with Mike Rowe on this one about the skills jobs. And if college is just spending $50,000 a year to cheat with ChatGPT, what's the point? Save your money. All right. Now, de-stress from the dystopian topics. Now is the time where we have some fun and we talk about our picks of the week. Joanne, why don't you get started with your pick of the week?
Well, many episodes ago, I picked cameras called the Mevo Starts. That's because webcams.
Streaming
cams, we should say. And these little cameras, for the last 4 years, I've been using them in my collaborative where I work. And they have been the most steady, most reliable. They are pliable when used with their app. And they're reasonably priced. They're about $400 a piece. The only problem with them is that they're not very good at zeroing in. So if you're going to be filming things, you need to be up close and personal, because they'll only zoom in so much. Logitech has come up with a solution with Mevo. It's called the Mevo Core. This is their first camera in which you can switch out lenses. So now you can have these wonderful telephoto lenses, or maybe a fisheye, or just as you would have on a camera, but now you're using it with a streaming camera. So I'm praying that I get some wonderful benefactor to get me one because we have one in a choir loft, but it doesn't get into the church as we'd like it to, when we only have a mass that can only use one camera. That's the problem. Most of my churches have 3 cameras in different places, but sometimes I have one that can only use one camera because they just want to turn it on because nobody knows how to use it, but they still want to live stream. So This is the solution. It is pricey though. It starts at $999. I don't want to say $1,000 because it just makes me itch. But they are pricier. But for those of you who are doing live streaming, maybe not so much in churches, but if you are doing it in churches, you need more than one camera to do it justice. Mm-hmm. And this, if you can match one of these with a regular Mevo Start, then I think you have the basis of keeping those folks who really have a tough time getting to church, your older folks or people who are ill, keep them, connected to your community. So that's the biggest reason why we use it. And I still take a lot of flack for it because everybody's like, the pandemic's over. You don't need to do this anymore. No, I do. Because there are still people who would rather be connected to our community than watching the diocesan generic show that shows up once a week.
So the benefits to this one is, to compared to other things, is it's Wi-Fi. Yes. So you don't need to run a cable. That's good.
Right. And the others are Wi-Fi as well.
Right, but I mean, like there's some webcams are wired only.
Right,
you know,
right.
This
is correct.
This is nice so that you don't have to run wires all over. If you're doing a church, you don't have to run all over the church. You just need power. The other thing is the interchangeable lenses are micro four third lenses, compatible with the Panasonic lenses. So there are lots of those out there. So you can just. I've got a couple in a bag actually here that I don't use.
I'll buy them off you.
I was going to say if you ever get this, let me know because I can sell them to you. So that it's a nice idea. I mean, like you said, it's pricey, but if you need this sort of thing, you're going to spend this much. Like this is actually less expensive than some other options. Like I have a Sony digital SLR that I use here. That it's 4K and all that, and it's got a interchangeable lens and all that stuff, but it was a lot more than $9.99. So it may be a good for you. So that's good. I like this. This
is also less expensive than buying something cheaper and realizing that it does not do the job.
Correct.
Correct. There is the what is it? The buy it cheap tax. Yeah. Yes. the lesson learned tax.
Yeah, and I've had my experience of buying the PTZs, the pan tilt zooms that are really expensive, and the Mevos, and I can still produce a basic good live stream with both of them. And so why not go with the cheaper?
Right.
The cheaper because parishes really cannot afford $10,000 or up for a system.
Right. The good pan tilt zooms are pretty darn expensive. Yeah. Excellent. So Thomas, that comes to you. What's your pick this week?
So my pick has sort of half been mentioned already. And I know that somebody has put this in a gift list somewhere. I just didn't find it on the picks of the week. So I figured I'd bring it up for a pick of the week. The Kobo Clara, which is an e-reader. It's an alternative to the Amazon readers. It's actually really good. I really like it. It feels great in the hand. It's the right size. I have the black and white version, so that's it's pretty nice. It does all the same stuff that you would expect out of an e-reader. It is e-ink. You can flip it over to nighttime. You can do the Pantone kind of like a grayish sort of or yellowish sort of background to it. So it's a great reader. Good solid reader. Good price. For just like $50 more, you can get the color. So if you're a person who's into reading manga or any kind of comic books or anything like that, it's really not much more expensive.
$20 more.
It's only 20. Okay, well there you go.
Yeah, nice.
So I would recommend going for the color if that's something that interests you. I'm a black and white reader. I just read novels on mine. So, but it fits in my devices. It recharges really quickly. It has battery forever. It's got all of the capabilities you would expect. And it's not Amazon. So that's in my mind right now, that is a big benefit and a big plus to having it.
Is it touchscreen or physical button for changing the button?
It's physical button.
See, that might be enough to get me to switch because I have the Paperwhite, Kindle Paperwhite, and it's hard to hold it without touching the screen, or let's be honest, I'm falling asleep in bed while I'm reading and I accidentally touch the screen and I wake up in the morning. I'm like, where was I? Like, what, like I changed, having the physical button would be much better. And folks, if you have a lot of Kindle ebooks, there were a pick of the week several weeks ago, or some time ago, that I gave it gave a process for getting your Kindle ebooks out possibly into other systems, shall we say. So you don't have to be trapped with all your books in Kindle. Or Audible books is I had a different pick of the week called Libation, which lets you get your audiobooks out from Kindle. So this is nice. I like it. I'm curious about a color e-ink reader, whether there are times when I'm reading nonfiction books which have maps, for instance, where I wish I had a better view of it, but I'm not sure if it would be important enough. I'd love to, because my fear would be the color would be muddy. It wouldn't be as sharp.
From what I've seen of them, they're a little more pastel-y than like a full color print. So yeah, kind of, I don't know, your mileage may vary. I do have an older one. I'm reading right now the specs on the current Clara, and it does look like it's a touch screen. So maybe the one I have is an older model that didn't have that.
the color is sold out, by the way, till the summer, they said. But they do offer the Libra color, which is $100 more.
Sure. Well, bigger screen. I like the 6-inch screen. That's one of my things that I like is the size is it's sized almost like a novel, so it feels a little bit more like reading a novel rather than a magazine. The original Clara is the 6-inch screen, which I think is what the same size as the Paperwhite. I believe they're close. Yeah. Nice.
That's cool. All right. Well, my pick this week is an app, an iOS, iPadOS app called Mercury Weather. Yes, it's yet another weather app, but this one's unique feature is the trip forecast. And what it does is it allows you to say, I'm going to be at this place at this future date, and it will update your forecast over time. Now, what I really wanted is one that updates the forecast as I drive there. Like, I'm going to be driving from point A to point B. Tell me what the forecast is going to be along my route during the times I'm going to be driving. That would be really nice. No one's done that one yet. I get that's a complicated thing to fix. But this one, it has all the other features that you want from a weather app, the standard things. But I like this idea that you can put in, like, I'm going to be at this place from these dates. Keep track of the weather for me as we get there, because you want to pack for the weather, right? So I'm going to be going to Acadia National Park in June. I'm going to be going to Italy in July. I already know the weather's going to be. It's going to be hot and sunny. So not a lot of surprise there. But Acadia can be variable in June. So I like that it's got this unique feature, and that's one of the things I like is. We have all these different weather apps that are possible out there, and they each can give you something unique, a unique feature. So I'm really excited about this one. So Mercury Weather. So there'll be links to all of these in the show notes. And that'll do it for us this time. We'd love to know what you thought of any part of our discussion, or if you'd like to give us any feedback, your thoughts on the smart home situation. We'd love to know what you think. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology or the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. You can send an email to technology@sqpn.com. Visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You can find the links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC299. Be sure to write a review in Apple Podcasts or one of the podcast directories, anywhere where you can write a review or give a star rating. Share the podcast with your friends and help us grow this community of great tech fiends. I was going to say, fiend is not good for a Catholic podcast. Tech friends. No. Yes, our tech friends. Until next time, Thomas Sanjurjo, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
It's been a pleasure.
Joanne Mercier, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Technology on StarQuest. Here's another show on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy. The Secrets of Star Wars. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Star Wars.